Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're going to dive into a really fascinating corner of human behavior. Have you ever noticed how the things we don't say can sometimes speak a whole lot louder than the things we actually do? Well, today we're exploring the psychology of unanswered questions. Relying strictly on our curated source material, we're going to unpack exactly why the human brain is hardwired to run away from certain topics and what that avoidance actually means.
So let's just jump right in. I want you to think for a second. Actually, let's break the fourth wall here. Think about a time you were sitting with a friend, maybe a family member, or even just sitting alone reflecting. Have you ever noticed someone, or maybe even yourself, getting strangely, almost physically uncomfortable when certain questions are asked? The whole vibe shifts, the eye contact breaks, the entire dynamic of the conversation just suddenly changes.
And when that discomfort hits, we don't just sit there. No, we deploy evasive actions. We actively try to escape the moment. We might abruptly change the subject. We might try to laugh it off with his forced awkward chuckle, or we just give these incredibly vague, totally non-committal answers. I mean, picture yourself at a family Thanksgiving dinner, gracefully dodging your uncle's very pointed question about your career goals. Or sometimes people will just straight up refuse to answer at all. These are the classic surface-level behaviors we all use to mask our discomfort in real time.
But why do we actually do this? Well, this brings us to the core thesis from our source material, and it is a powerful one. The questions people avoid often reveal more than the questions they answer easily. Just let that sink in for a second. Psychology tells us this avoidance, it isn't random. It's directly triggered by threats to our identity or our emotional security. Certain topics literally trip an alarm in our brains because they touch on insecurities or parts of our identity that we just absolutely do not want exposed to the light of day.
So, to really understand why we hide, we're going to peel the onion and examine 4 specific areas of psychological avoidance.
Let's start with layer number 1, confronting our desires and happiness.
Here's question number 1. What do you actually want in life? Sounds super simple, right? It sounds like a basic, everyday icebreaker. But for a lot of people, being asked this creates immediate, intense discomfort. And why is that? Because answering it honestly forces a sudden, very uncomfortable confrontation with yourself. You can't answer this without taking a long, hard look in the mirror. We usually dodge this for a few big reasons. Sometimes it's just genuine ignorance. People literally do not know what they want, and admitting that out loud kind of feels like a failure. For other people, their real desires completely conflict with the life they're living right now. I mean, imagine the psychological weight of realizing you want something entirely different from the life you spent years building. And finally, there's uncertainty about identity. Psychologically speaking, not knowing who we are creates massive avoidance. Giving a vague, fluffy answer is just emotionally safer than admitting you have no idea who you are or what you're doing. Which leads us directly to the second question. Are you truly happy right now? Now notice how often people automatically, almost reflexively, just say yes to this without even pausing to think. It's like a knee-jerk reflex, but psychology suggests that quick yes isn't always the truth.
And this brings us to the fascinating concept of social masks. We use these surface-level responses to completely avoid revealing deeper dissatisfaction or emotional vulnerability. Because admitting you're unhappy quietly removes that mask. It leaves us feeling incredibly exposed. Psychology shows we will actively protect ourselves by dodging emotional vulnerability, sometimes even with our absolute closest friends. So rather than opening up about that messy dissatisfaction, we just throw the mask on, give a cheerful yes, and rush the conversation along.
Moving deeper. Layer number 2, protecting the self-image. And here is the deeply uncomfortable third question. Why did your last relationship end? Just ask yourself how you feel simply hearing that question. Honest answers to this inherently threaten our carefully crafted self-image. Because let's face it, it's rarely a clean, simple story. And telling the absolute truth often puts our own flaws right into the spotlight. There are massive emotional threats standing right behind that question. Honest answers might mean admitting to guilt. They might force us to relive the sting of rejection or acknowledge a huge emotional failure. More often than not, they drag up a lot of unresolved pain. When people refuse to answer or when they just give you a total non-answer, these are the exact painful realities they're trying to shield themselves from. They are desperately protecting the image of themselves as competent, lovable, and successful. To handle this threat, we rely on defensive tactics. We immediately try to simplify the narrative into something easily digestible. Then we purposely dodge the messy, specific details, and honestly, a lot of the time we just shift the blame entirely onto the other person. But the key takeaway here is that this behavior isn't always some kind of malicious manipulation.
Very often, it's just an automatic emotional defense mechanism kicking in to keep the ego from being totally crushed.
All right, layer number 3, hiding our deepest fears.
This brings us to question number 4. What are you most afraid of? Fear, by its very nature, reveals vulnerability, and vulnerability instantly makes most people wildly uncomfortable. Some people avoid this question just because they're terrified of being judged by the person asking it.
But psychology reveals an even deeper truth here. The mind actively hides painful fears beneath distraction, beneath humor, or beneath just constant, never-ending busyness. Many people dodge this question because they rarely allow themselves to consciously think about their deepest fears at all. Their brain has essentially built a massive fortress of daily distractions to keep that fear locked away. So when the question is dropped right in front of them, avoiding it isn't even a choice anymore. It's an automatic, hardwired survival response.
And finally, we arrive at the core, layer 4. The true private self.
I want to let this psychologically intense 5th question just hang in the air for a moment. Who are you when nobody's around? Really think about that. This question forces an incredibly uncomfortable separation in our minds. It demands that we strip away literally everything external. You see, we all sort of exist in a state of separation. On one side, we have our public identity, our social roles, our appearances, all the expectations everyone else has of us. But on the other side, there's our private identity, who you truly are underneath all of that noise. Most of us behave entirely differently depending on who's watching. So being asked who you are beneath the social roles, that creates a deeply exposing gap. It completely highlights the difference between the performer and the actual person.
Which brings us to this profound quote from the source material regarding this final question. It says, "It forces the mind to confront something many people avoid." And this is it. This is the absolute core psychological dread at the center of all conversational avoidance. It's not just about hiding from other people. Fundamentally, it's about hiding from ourselves.
And that leaves us with this final, ultimate question, the true fear hiding beneath all the evasion. Do you actually know yourself at all? When we dodge questions about our desires, our happiness, our past, and our fears, are we protecting some secret identity, or are we just terrified to find out that there's nothing behind the mask? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured journey through the human mind has given you a powerful new lens to understand yourself and the people around you. Keep reflecting on those unanswered questions, and I will see you next time.